forehead. Oh my goodness. Why is it always so shiny? Hey y'all, it's Thomasina. Welcome back to my channel. And if you're new here, my name is Thomasina and I'm a model now based in Sydney, Australia. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to answer your 10 most asked questions about what the experience is like working as a model abroad or outside of your home country. If you guys don't know, this is actually my first time working abroad as a model. This is my first time being signed to an international modeling agency, and it's definitely a milestone in my career. It's something that I've always wanted to achieve, and now we're finally here in Australia. So let's jump right into the video. So of course, starting out, you guys want to dive into my pockets. So the first question is, do they pay more abroad? And the answer is, it depends. It depends on which market you're coming from. I live in New York. New York, next to California and Texas, is like one of the highest paying states in the US. So of course I was used to getting paid the big bucks. Here in Australia, not only is the Australian dollar worth less than the US dollar, the market is a lot smaller than in the US, especially compared to New York. So to answer the question, am I getting paid more here than in New York? The answer is no. It's unfortunate, but it's just the facts. I'm not getting paid more here than I was in New York. Now, generally speaking, when a model travels abroad to work in another city, if she's working every day in this new city, then maybe she'll be getting paid more than where she came from. Like, for example, if she was based in a smaller market in the US, like North Carolina, where the pay and the jobs are not as much, and then she goes to Japan or Cape Town or Australia where she's working every day, then yeah, she'll probably get paid more in an international market compared to the smaller market in the US. So again, although I'm not getting paid more here in Australia, every model's experience is different and it really just depends on which market you're coming from and which market you're going to. The second question is the modeling industry less competitive here in Sydney, Australia compared to New York? And I would say yes. The market here in Australia is much smaller than in New York, and there's a smaller population of models based here in Sydney, whereas in New York, you have models, it's a melting pot of models. You have models coming from all over the world because New York is the hub, it is the mecca for all things commercial, print, advertisement, fashion. So that's where most of the jobs are, and that's where most of the well-paying jobs are. So of course, that's where most of the models are going to be. So I do think Australia is a less competitive market, but it also just depends on what you look like. My look is very, very unique here in Australia, so I may not work as much as a girl who fits the overall aesthetic of what the citizens look like here. So is it less competitive? Yes, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're still going to be working a lot. Someone asked, was it easy to get a visa and how long is the visa? For me as a US passport holder, it was very easy to get an Australian visa, and I specifically got a working visa since I'll be working here, and my visa lasts me a full year. So the process was almost immediate. I paid my visa application fee, which I think was like $500. I may be completely off with that. I got it a long time ago, but you can easily just look it up to see how much it is. But yeah, I submitted my application and I think I was approved in less than 24 hours. The only thing I'm upset about is that I did not get a visa stamp in my passport. Like usually when I travel to another country, they always stamp my passport. Australia, I did not get a stamp. Hopefully I can try to finesse one on the way back because I just need proof. Any tangible proof in my passport that I've been here. It's gonna vary depending on what country you're coming from. When you go to apply for a visa, it will show you the limit of how many people from each country would be allowed to get a visa for Australia. So the US did not have a cap. So there was an unlimited amount of visa, I guess, access to US citizens, but there were other countries like, I don't remember specific countries, but there were other countries where it would be limited to like, you know, maybe 100 people, 10 people, 50 people. So certain countries do have a cap on how many visa applications will be approved, but if you're a US passport holder, you don't have to worry about that. For the most part, there is no cap on US visa grants, I guess. Someone asked, how long do you usually stay in another country when you go? For this go round, I think I'm going to be here 4 months. Typically, when you sign in a new market, your agents prefer that you stay up to 3 months to give yourself time to gain momentum in the industry and to meet the clients, get to know the clients, and really present yourself and maybe shoot with some photographers out here. So it's really hard to do all of that in just 1 month. So most agents prefer that you stay up to 3 months. And my agents, when I did meet with them when I first got here, they did let me know that girls that are coming in from the US or coming from larger markets like New York and LA, we are used to fast pace, we're used to working all the time. And she was transparent in letting me know that it's probably not going to be as fast paced. The jobs are probably not going to be flowing like they are in New York. She kind of wanted to break the ice so that my expectations wouldn't be all the way up here. So she took me down a few notches. This is a good question. Someone asked, do you live with other models? So if you're familiar at all with the modeling industry, you know that there are things called model houses in the major cities where most models are working, like New York, LA, probably some in Canada, Cape Town. My agency used to do model housing, I believe, but after the pandemic, those shared housing accommodations kind of just took a plummet. So my agency specifically does not do model housing anymore. They don't organize accommodations for their models. Of course, they'll help you out. Like if they hear of anyone who may be renting out a room, or if they hear of any girls that are like traveling and willing to sublet out their room, they'll definitely let you know and put the word out there. But as far as having specific housing for their international models, my agency does not have that, but a lot of other agencies do. I chose to do an Airbnb for the first month because I found that there were a lot of scams on the internet when looking for an apartment as an international person coming in, and I just wanted to be here and have boots on the ground so that if I did find an apartment, I could go see it in person, meet the person in person, and there's not kind of like this online exchange of information. So that was just how I chose to do it. I know a lot of other models who also opt into Airbnb as opposed to booking some kind of apartment while they're still overseas, but that was the safest option for me, since my agency did not have a model house or a model apartment for me. And kind of along the same lines, someone also asked, how do you find housing? Depending on what city you're traveling to, it may be easier to find accommodations online than others. For me, here for Sydney, Australia, there are a lot of expat groups on Facebook, a lot of flatmates, shared housing groups on Facebook, and Australia also has websites dedicated to finding roommates, or here they call them flatmates. They have like flatmate finders. What's another one? I think it's just flatmates.com.au. So they literally have websites specific for that. So it wasn't really hard to find accommodations. Again, I went through Airbnb first. And then most of the leads that I got came from Facebook. I posted in a few Facebook groups, told them about myself, told them what I was looking for, told them my budget, and people just reached out like, oh, I'm traveling, you can take my room from this date to this date, this is how much it is, this is who I'm living with. If you watch my next vlog, I take you guys with me to go view all of the houses and apartments that I would potentially be moving into, so you guys can be more familiar with that process of how I go about finding a long-term stay or a short-term stay when modeling abroad. This is a very important question and also a big misconception about the modeling industry. Someone asked, who pays for your housing and accommodations when you're traveling abroad for work? If you just got signed to a new agency and you're moving to a new country to test the market, you are paying for all of that. You're paying for your flight, you're paying for your accommodations, you're paying for your groceries, like you're fronting the bill. There are situations where an agency, like if you don't have the money yet, an agency will opt to front the cost to you, which basically means they'll pay for your flight, they'll pay for your housing, they'll pay for your accommodation, in the hopes that when you get to the new location and start working, you can pay them back. So you won't see your first check until that debt to your agency is paid off. So for any models that are interested in traveling abroad for work for an extended period of time, I recommend just saving up and paying for it yourself instead of being indebted to your agency. Now, if a client specifically books you and you have to travel to that location for like one specific job, if the client has the budget to do so, the client will pay for your flight and your accommodations and sometimes your meals and everything like that. But that's only if a client is booking you directly. Sometimes the clients don't have the budget, and even if you want to work that job, you have to pay for your way there, you have to pay for your accommodations, and just suck it up. Someone asked, of course, how do you even find an agency abroad? How do you get an agency abroad? I started applying to international agencies probably in 2021, and that was amidst the whole COVID pandemic thing. So it was hard to secure a contract. I had one agency in Cape Town that was willing to sign me and offer me a contract, but my parents didn't want me to go over there amidst the COVID and, you know, border closures and everything, and I would get trapped over there. So I took a break from that. But towards the end of 2022, I was like, okay, next year I want to start working abroad. I want to start testing out these different countries. So I say all that to say, you find an international modeling agency by just Googling. Literally, models.com. I have a whole video about this on how to get signed to a modeling agency. It's no different when you're looking for an international agency either. You can utilize models.com, scroll through the list of agencies listed in each country that you're interested in working in or visiting, and just apply. You know you need your digitals, you know you need your measurements, you know you need your contact information. Submit and cross your fingers. If they don't reply to you, then you know you can reapply in 3 to 6 months. When you reapply, make sure you're changing your digitals. You don't want to keep resubmitting to these agencies with the same kind of digitals because obviously they did not like what they saw the first time. This is a great question. Someone asked, how do you decide the best time to go abroad? So for me, I signed with my agency in Australia last November, maybe? Yeah, it would have been a full year. So last winter, I signed with my agency in Australia. And so I asked them, when is your busiest season for work? When are your girls and guys, when are your models working the most? And they were like, we tend to see the most work during the summertime. And I was like, all right, bet, I'm gonna come during the summer. That works perfectly because I don't like winter anyways. I'll be missing out on New York City winter, and that sounds amazing to me. So that's how I chose what season or what time period to come, and it just worked out perfectly. So my recommendation when you're trying to figure out when is the best time to go, obviously taking into consideration your own personal life and your own personal schedule, just ask the agency that you're considering when their busiest season is. Obviously, when you're working abroad, the objective is to work. The objective is to work as much as you can, so obviously it makes sense to go during the time period where most models are working. And the last question of the night or day, depending on where you're watching this video from, how does working abroad benefit your modeling career? This is a great question, and I think the answer is going to differ based on who you ask. For me, I love traveling. I've loved traveling abroad since my first international trip to Kenya back in freaking, 2018, I believe it was, 2017 or 2018. That really sparked my love for travel. And sometimes when you're working, it is hard to schedule in time for traveling. So my thought process is, why don't I just combine the two? I can see the world and attempt to work at the same time. So to me, the benefit of working abroad to my modeling career is just the exposure and the experience in itself, working in a different culture, because it's not always going to be the same as what we experience in the US, and I think that just broadens my scope of everything that I have access to in the modeling industry. You also have access to working with new creatives, so new photographers, new makeup artists, new casting directors, new clients that you've never even heard of because we may not have those products in our home country. So just the exposure you have when working abroad is a benefit in itself. Granted, you may go to another country and you may not work at all, but you still have the experience of saying, you know, I'm signed to an international modeling agency and I traveled abroad and I gave it my best and I gave it my all. I met some creative people, I met some photographers, I met my agents, and I may not have worked as much as I wanted to, but I still got that exposure, probably did some amazing photo shoots with different scenery. We don't have sand dunes in New York City, but here in Sydney, there are sand dunes, there are tropical beaches, there are this, there's that. So you have the opportunity to build your portfolio with a different landscape than what you're experiencing or what you're used to in your home country. Obviously, there's the potential of working more in another country than you do in your home country. That's always the hope, you know, that's always the aim and the goal. But I do want to be honest with you guys and myself that you go to a whole nother country on the side of the world, and sometimes you don't work as much as you think you are going to, especially if you're coming from a major market like New York City where most of the work is. You just have to have, I don't want to say realistic expectations because y'all know being delusional is the solution. To avoid being like super disappointed, just go in with the expectation that this is going to be a new and positive experience, that everyone may not be fortunate enough to have this kind of opportunity. So that's how I see it as beneficial to my modeling career. Anyways, that about wraps it up for your most asked questions about the experience of working abroad as a model. Be sure to subscribe and give this video a big thumbs up, and stay tuned for the rest of my vlogs here in Sydney, Australia. Bye! 'Cause I'm not just a pretty girl, I'm more